All right, another different video for you today. I am going to be talking about the M1 iPad Pro. So I just picked one of these up for myself. I got the 256 gig version, and it's the 12.9 inch, and I'm really glad that I did get the bigger iPad Pro because it has better speakers, which just kind of seemed like a no-brainer to me. And at first I thought maybe the smaller one would be more portable, the smaller iPad Pro. But this one is very tiny in comparison to the old iPad Pro because there's much smaller bezels on the device. So it is a very portable device. I also use it for reading sheet music. So if I'm playing jazz piano or something like that, I've got my charts that come up and they're nice and big. So that's another thing that I really like about the bigger iPad Pro. The other thing I love about this new iPad Pro is the screen refresh rate. Like, this thing is so smooth when you're moving through different applications and stuff like that. It is probably not going to be noticeable on my 24 frames video, but it's extremely smooth, just buttery when you're going through Safari, you're looking through links on the browser and stuff like that. I know that seems kind of like, really, is this worth that extra feature? But it is a really cool user experience, that's for sure. Even working with applications, you're going to find adjusting things like knobs and mixer sliders and stuff like that just looks so smooth on the new iPad. So I think that's only on the 12.9 inch version. So all these things to think about when you're going and making these purchases. I also bought the 256 gig version. I decided if I need more than that, I'll just hook up an SSD. I have downloaded a whole bunch of applications. I'm going to show you some of those ones today, and the main one I want to show you is this Beatmaker 3 application. And I'm not even kidding when I tell you that this thing is awesome. It's totally blowing my mind, and I'm really, really impressed with it. I've been watching all these different YouTube creators out there like Bolo the Producer, and that guy keeps talking about how he likes the sampler on Beatmaker 3 better than any other sampler in any other DAW or piece of hardware. And I'm starting to see why he keeps saying that, and I'm realizing he's not exaggerating. So I'll put a bunch of links in the description to other YouTubers like Bolo the Producer. We've got Jakob Hack. I've got a couple other guys I've been watching, and just turning out great stuff. Music Technologist, another really good one. Elbow Media Studios and Jay Elliott, just to name a few, and I will put others in the description. And go ahead and link to some of your favorite iPad YouTube content creators. Now, the other big question is why? Why get an iPad? Why do I need this? Do I need this? And for me, it's all about portability. And it's been really cool to just play around with this stuff in here, maybe record some of my Rhodes or my synthesizers, and then take that iPad into my house. I'm sitting on the couch and I can edit that stuff just on this little device, relatively little device, you know, in comparison to a bigger piece of hardware. I will also say, though, like something like Machine Plus is going to be a lot more stable than this. I downloaded a new synthesizer this morning. I opened it up, I loaded 3 patches, and it crashed. You know, so would I want to use that in a live scenario? Most likely not. We're not there yet. And then bring it back to the studio, import it into Machine or import it into Cubase, and then finish the song off at that point. But the truth is, with something like Beatmaker 3, you really can do an entire song right in this software. And maybe I'll do that in the future. What I will do right now is show you some of my favorite things about Beatmaker 3, and we'll talk about the incredible sampler that's built into it. We'll use it a bit, and we'll add to this song that I've already got going on here. So what do I have going on? This is Beatmaker 3. Is a little idea that I played on the Rhodes. So I just set up an audio track, plugged in my Rhodes into the Steinberg UR22 Mark II interface. So that's what I've got plugged in right now. And this device just plugs straight into the iPad through this little connector. I've got HDMI going to my TV, and I've got room for one more port if I wanted to plug in power to power the device, because I've only got one port on this. There's no headphone output on the iPad Pro, which is really annoying, but hey, whatever, it's just the way it is these days. So here's my little idea. So you can see the main layout of Beatmaker 3. I've got a bunch of tracks over on the left-hand side. And the greatest thing about the software is there's also ways for you to work with it in a scenes and patterns or clips kind of way, like Ableton or Machine. So if that's the way you'd rather work, you can do the same thing in this software. So you've got the ability to work with scenes, and then you've got the ability to work with patterns. I'll explore that sort of side of things in a later video. In this one, I'm going to be using it more like a traditional DAW. And I love the fact that you have both options. It's kind of like Ableton Live, where you can work in the session view or the arrangement view. You can see my different tracks. We've got auxiliary effects that are already on there. And right now, I do have some audio effects on my auxiliary. So I've got a reverb on auxiliary 1, and then I can put a delay on auxiliary 2. So I just go add audio effect, and we'll go to delay, and then you've got your settings right here. So we'll crank up the mix because it's a send effect. This software is laid out beautifully. I love the dark interface. We've got a keyboard right there. We've got the mixer right here. And then just like on Machine, you can see this group that I've got right here. You can see this group, or bank as they call it in Beatmaker 3. On this first bank, and this kit is actually one of my favorite expansions by Machine called Crate Cuts, which I'll put a link to in the description. And so what I used is a piece of software called Kitmaker, and I'll put a link to Kitmaker in the description as well. And Kitmaker is this great little piece of software that allows you to take your expansions and convert them into Beatmaker 3 banks. So if I wanted to load a new bank, I could click right here, and then I can go to my little browser right here. I can go to Bank Presets, and under Bank Presets, you can see my Crate Cuts library that I transferred in over the file browser here on the iPad. And you can hear like this snare right here has some noise attached to it. So all I have to do is click on the little wave icon, and we can see all this crackle, this record crackle that's happening thanks to this one sample. So if you listen to the kit, then what I could do is just go in right here and drag this in, and then I could go over to Edit. So I take my endpoint, let's do that again. We take my endpoint, and I'm going to go Trim, and then I'm going to go to Select. We get some new flags that pop up, and then here on this one, I'm just going to go Process and Fade Out. And then now take off Select, and now we can hear no more record crackle. Let's just leave that in there. So I'm going to undo that. That is my drums, and then here I've got Pure Synth Platinum loaded up. So we can go back to my tracks, and every time you click on this little banks button right here, you can see the banks that we have. And then if I go to my song view, you can see that I've got some audio tracks in here, like this audio track that shows up right there. That doesn't show up in my banks view. This is how I would load up kits. This is how I would load up a synthesizer. I click the plus button, and then we'll do that in a second. I'll show you how to do that. But we go back to my song view, and you can see that I've got Pure Synth Platinum loaded up right here. So all I did is I made a new bank, and then under the browser, go to the magnifying glass, go to Plugins, Audio Units, and there's the different synthesizers that I have installed on my iPad. So these Moog ones are really great, by the way. This Pure Synth Platinum looks awesome. It's by Gospel Musicians, and those guys are like just incredible. This software looks great, and the stuff they do for training videos, really got to check them out because they're just fantastic. Just incredible musicians over there, and really cool stuff. And then this synthesizer it's more like a Rompler that just has all your basic meat and potatoes kind of sounds on the iPad, and it's not that expensive. I think it cost me like 28 bucks Canadian, which is probably $2 American. And so if I just click over to this little button right here, we're going to see the interface for the software. Now I have this keyboard hooked up through MIDI to my UR22 Mark II interface. So no USB, it's just going straight in. So there's nothing fancy with the complete control on this one, unfortunately, but it does give me the ability to play my chords. Over here on Pure Synth Platinum, you can click on the banks and you can see all of the different sounds that we have in here: strings, guitars, keys, acoustic pianos, stuff like that. Beatmaker 3 doesn't come with a lot of sounds. And the truth is, it's all about the sampling capabilities on this program, not so much about the sounds that come with it. Now I'm going to go to song mode right here, and I'm just going to play in some strings. So let's just rename this. I'll just hold down that button, click on rename, and we'll call this strings. can double click on that and have a look at the information that I just played. Of course, you can zoom in and out using the lovely zooming features of the iPad. And let's just see if we can edit this. So there's one note that was just a little off. Let's just, whoops. This is the stuff that I find a little bit finicky so far. So I just want to take that note and just move it over. There we go. It's going to take me a little while to get used to that. Let's try doing some audio recording. So first I'm going to record some bass. I'm going to click the plus button right here, and we're going to make a new audio track. Before I do that, I'm going to save. And then I'm going to call this audio track, we'll call it bass. I'm going to click on the input. We go audio input, and there it is, Steinberg UR22. Could use a little compression, maybe a little EQ on that. And so to do that, I'd probably click on the track itself and then make sure I'm selected on the bass track, and then just go over to audio effects, and I can drop in a bunch of effects there. Let's not worry about that right now. Let's record some electric guitar. We're going to go on to bank F, and I'm going to click on the sampling button, and then I'm going to hit the record button, and we're going to say, where are you getting samples from? We're going to get it from an internal or from a hardware input. And we'll set it to threshold, so as soon as it gets a signal of some sort, it's going to start recording. Okay, so all I'm going to do is record a bunch of chords, and then we're going to chop them up, place them on pads, and treat them kind of like a sample. Okay, so we're going to start with the F minor chord, and maybe I'll give ourselves some options. Go to the next chord. And the next chord. And then I'll cut back to the next chord. And then we'll go to the chorus chords. And the next chord is a little more complicated. And then we got the other chords again. So now I click on slice mode, I go to auto slice. When you're working with something like a loop that's exactly 2 or 3 or 4 bars long or whatever, you just could go split, and you could slice it up to a ratio, 16 slices or whatever. And then you can also do grid, which is going to line up with your beats per minute of your song. Or you can click on detect, and detect mode is going to detect the slices in there. It starts at 100%. I usually end up cranking this way down. All right, so we can see my slices. That looks perfect. I can just click over to pad view, and if I click keys, we're going to hear all of my different chords, and you can just play them that way. Or I could go over to the sample here, and I could go save, and I'm going to save these to the pads. But before I do that, I can do things in here, like I can time stretch things, and we'll see how we can do that with loops that are at a certain tempo that you want to keep. I can change the fade in so that we have this tiny little 1 millisecond attack. I usually like to do that, and then a few milliseconds fade out so that the pads don't have any clicks and pops at the beginning and end of slices. Save, and we're going to slice to pads, and we're going to save it to the current bank, and we're going to create a choke group so that they cut each other off, just like we would on a machine. And then I don't need to create a pattern for this, because I'm going to play these in. But if you wanted to put a pattern down, kind of like an old Rex file or whatever, or just like we would put the pattern to slices, or create a pattern with machine, you can do the same thing right here. So I hit apply, and now we can see each pad gets its own slice. And then we can go and do things to each slice, like we could reverse one slice. you know? Or, you know what would be fun is just hit stop there. Let's go over to the pad view here for a second, and I'm gonna click on that pad, I'm gonna select it, and I'm gonna go copy pad, and then let's put right there, we're gonna paste that pad right there, and then we go over to samples, and then now on this pad only, we're gonna reverse it. So now we've got a reversed sample. We can maybe start it a little bit earlier or something like that. Let's start it even earlier. So now I go over here, I got my F minor, another F minor, another F minor, got my B flat, my C, or my, sorry, A flat, B flat. Now we got the C sharp, C, and then my extra F minor backwards one. So that's working really nicely in there. Here is my trumpet sample that I found for this song. And this one came from a lo-fi thing that I got off ADSR Sounds. Really nice sample library, lo-fi samples and stuff. So I click play. I have a trumpet and I should probably just play it, but I just want to show you the sample capabilities of this software. So right now we can see our tempo is at 120. We'd want to match that to whatever it is in the software. So I just click right here and drag down until we get to 90. Now we can see this note comes in on beat 2. Here we can see this lines up with beat bar 2 over here, bar 3, and bar 4. So this is 4 bars long, and it lines up perfectly. And the coolest thing about this software is if you load up a loop and you know that this thing right here starts at bar 2, but you have no idea how long the loop is or what the tempo is, all you have to do is click on tempo and watch what happens as I drag up or down. Now we can see it lines up with bar 2. So if that was what this loop was all about, you would see it perfectly line up now. You've got your tempo set perfectly. You know that it's at 103, whether it's set it in the top of the sample or not. So the problem with samples, if it's not a 2-bar loop or a 4-bar loop, it's just, you know, a chunk of time, then the grid and the tempo is not going to match up. It's going to seem kind of arbitrary. So you can go and specifically drop in the tempo so that you see against this grid as you adjust the tempo on the beats per minute here. And for some of you who are not understanding what I'm saying, don't worry too much about it, but it's just so simple to use. And those who do know, you're probably like, yeah, this is actually incredible and incredibly easy to work with. So I'm just going to undo that and set that back to 90 beats per minute. And then the other thing you can do is turn on live stretch. And so this is at 90 beats per minute. Our project is at 111 beats per minute. So I want to take these rhythms and I want to make sure that they line up with the tempo of my song. Because right now there's a couple little spots in there where there's a little riff. All I have to do is turn on live stretch for this loop. I go high quality. And now whether I am in slice mode or just playing back the sample, it's going to time stretch the samples for me. This is way easier than everything else that I've used. So now I can slice it. It's going to keep it at whatever pitch I keep it at, whatever tempo I change it to. But the greatest thing, again, is if I change the tempo of my project now, it's automatically going to change the speed of these slices for me. Amazing. We've got our tempo now set from 90 to 111. Let's just have a listen to that. So it's sped it up a little bit. And sped it up to match the tempo of my song. So now I can go to slice mode right here and I can start slicing this thing up. And it looks like it's done a pretty good job of slicing it on its own. Maybe just this slice right here. And if I want to hear that slice, just go over to edit mode. Oh, that one actually looks pretty good. All right, there we go. So now I've got my slices set. I'm going to hit save and I'm going to put my slices onto the pads. I'm going to set it to choke group 1 so they all turn each other off, and then I'm just going to hit apply. So now if I go over here, we can see my 16 slices just like we would have on a machine, but here is where things get awesome. On the iPad Pro, it's so big we can click 64 slices, and now we have up to 64 different chunks. Have you ever worked on a loop that's more than 16 slices and wished that you could see 64 on a machine? Well, you can on the iPad, and that's what I'm loving about this. So now I can go through and I can find the samples that I want to use with this little idea. I'm going to go back to this one, which is the one I originally made. It's already got some effects on it, so I'm just going to put something in at the sort of chorus part. Here we go. Let me show you one more thing with importing loops. Again, how easy that is. Okay, let's try this little loop right here. I'm going to load that up. And we know that it's not in the right key. So right now it's saying 75 beats per minute. So let's set the beats per minute here to 75. And so I go 75 beats per minute, and here we can see these things are lining up on the grid nicely. Next thing we're going to do is set it to live stretch. We're going to go high quality. Let's have a listen. It's going faster because our tempo is faster. It just works like that. It's in C minor. We're in F, so we need to go either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 semitones up or 7 semitones down. Let's try 5 up and see how that sounds. And then just for fun, let's try 7 down and see how that sounds. Might work better in this kind of lo-fi thing. So we do that. Now we take our slice mode, we go to auto slice, we go to detect, and we crank that way down until we get just the right amount of slices, maybe something like that. Let's go to edit, and I'm just going to get rid of this slice right here. So we're going to go delete slice, and then now we've got this slice right here, and we're just going to drag it out a little bit. There we go. So now we've got, and we can use this little keyboard down here at the bottom. Perfect. Okay, and then we're going to go back, and then I am going to go save, slice to pads, and we'll go choke group 1. Again, that's just going to cut each slice off as I click between the different slices. And then now I go over to my pads. Kind of fun, right? So now you see how those slices are in the right key, they're in the right time, and slice them up, apply them to the pads, and it's just so fast and seamless. Like the time stretching and the pitch shifting on this is kind of blowing my mind. And then the next thing I need to do is see how we can get this off of the iPad and into programs like Machine. So that's something I will do in a future video for sure. But all I wanted to do in this video is just show you how powerful this software is for not very much money, and then also how it's working on the new iPad. So we can also see how my iPad is doing with the processor if I click this little button right here and press play. At about 9% on the CPU on this. I know I don't have many tracks in here, but it really gives you an idea that I think we could push this thing very far. Maybe what I'll do now is just use the Model D. Let's go for that one. And then I click on the little keyboard button. You can see my controls. Let's turn the volume down. And then let's click this little drop down and go for some lead sounds. Well, that sounds great. make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell. More videos coming up on this wonderful new technology.